Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he checked the cargo manifest one more time. The loading dock at Kepler Station was busy as always, with ships from dozens of different worlds coming and going. His cargo ship, the Nighthawk, sat in Docking Bay 7, waiting for the last few containers to be loaded. "Captain, we're almost done here," called Lisa Hayes from the loading ramp. She was his co-pilot and had been working with him for 3 years. Behind her, Tom Bradley was directing the loading robots, making sure each container was properly secured. Jake nodded and looked around the station. Kepler Station was one of the biggest trading posts on the outer rim of human space. It was a place where humans did business with alien species from across the galaxy. The station was huge, built like a giant wheel spinning slowly in space. Different sections housed different alien species, each with their own atmosphere and gravity. Settings. He watched as a group of tall, blue-skinned Altarians walked past, their long arms carrying strange crystalline devices. Near the food court, some short, furry Bexians were arguing loudly in their clicking language. Jake had learned to recognize most of the common alien species after 10 years of running cargo between human and alien worlds. "Captain Morrison," a voice said behind him. Jake turned to see Zeal, the station's Korthic administrator. The Korthic looked like a cross between a lizard and a bird, with gray scales and small, bright yellow eyes. Zeal was always polite but cold, treating humans like they were just another minor species in the galaxy. "Your loading permits are in order," Zeal said, handing Jake a datapad. "Your ship will be cleared for departure in 1 hour." "Thanks, Zeal," Jake replied, taking the pad. He noticed the Korthic seemed nervous about something, but he didn't ask. Aliens often acted strange around humans, and Jake had stopped trying to understand why years ago Jake was about to head back to his ship when alarms started blaring across the station. Red lights flashed, and the automated voice system began, speaking in multiple languages. "Alert, alert. Unauthorized ships approaching. All civilians report to designated safe areas." Through the large windows of the docking bay, Jake could see several dark ships moving toward the station. They were long and sharp, painted in the red and black colors of Zelkarian pirates. The Zelkarians were one of the most feared species. In this part of the galaxy, they were tall, muscular humanoids with gray skin and no hair. Their culture was built around war and conquest. "Lisa, Tom, get back to the ship now," Jake shouted, but it was too late. The airlock to their docking bay suddenly opened, and armed Zelkarian soldiers poured in. They moved quickly, their plasma rifles ready. The leader was taller than the rest, with scars covering his face and arms. His armor had the marks of a ship captain. "Nobody move," the captain shouted in broken standard. His voice was deep and threatening. "This station is now under Zelkarian control." The other people in the docking bay dropped to the ground or hid behind cargo containers. Jake, Lisa, and Tom found themselves surrounded by 6 Zelkarian warriors, their weapons pointed directly at them. "You are humans," the captain said, looking at Jake with cold, dark eyes. "Perfect. Human slaves bring good prices in the outer territories." Jake felt his heart racing. He had heard stories about what happened to humans who were captured by Zelkarian pirates. It was never good. "Look, we're just cargo runners. We don't have anything valuable." The captain laughed, a harsh sound. "You are wrong, human. You are the valuable thing. Your species makes excellent workers in the mines. Very strong, very tough. And when you break, you make good entertainment." Lisa stepped closer to Jake, her face pale with fear. Tom was slowly reaching for the emergency beacon on his belt, but one of the Zelkarian soldiers noticed and pointed his rifle at him. "Do not move, or you die now instead of later," the soldier growled. The captain walked around them slowly, like a predator studying its prey. "My name is Vexter. I am captain of the warship Blood Fang. You will come with us. Your ship and its cargo now belong to the Zelkarian Empire. Jake tried to think of a way out, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. The Zelkarians were known for their military skills and their brutal treatment of prisoners. He had never felt so helpless. That's when something strange happened. Tom's emergency beacon, which he had been trying to reach, suddenly activated by itself. Jake heard the familiar beeping sound, and then all the lights in the docking bay began flashing in a specific pattern. Within seconds, every communication device in the area started making noise. Jake could hear alien voices speaking in dozens of different languages, all sounding urgent and alarmed. Even Vexter's own communication device was buzzing with incoming messages. The Zelkarian captain grabbed his communicator with an annoyed expression. "What is it?" He barked in his own language. Jake couldn't understand the response, but he could see Vexter's face changing. The confident look was replaced by something that looked almost like fear. The captain's voice became higher as he spoke, rapidly with whoever was on the other end. "Sir," one of the Zelkarian soldiers said, "we're getting emergency signals from multiple ship classes. Altarian, Bexian, Korthic, even some Drekthari vessels. They're all heading this way." Vexter looked confused and angry. "Why? This is just a simple raid on a minor trading station." The soldier checked his scanner. "Sir, they're not coming to help the station. The signals indicate they're responding to a Terran protection alert." "A what?" Vexter demanded. Before anyone could answer, Jake heard the deep rumble of ship engines outside. Through the windows, he could see ships arriving from all directions. Not just one or two, but dozens of them. Ships from species that normally hated each other were flying in formation, all heading toward Kepler Station. Vexter's communicator buzzed again, and this time the voice on the other end was shouting. Jake didn't understand the words, but the tone was clear. Someone was very angry and very afraid. The captain's face went pale, which was impressive since Alcarians already had gray skin. He looked at Jake and his crew with something that might have been respect, or maybe terror. "Release the humans," Vexter ordered his soldiers. "Sir?" one of them asked, confused. "Release them! Now! We leave immediately." The soldiers lowered their weapons, looking just as confused as Jake felt. Within minutes, the Zelkarian raiders were running back to their ships. Through the station's communication system, Jake could hear frantic voices in multiple languages, all seeming to coordinate some kind of massive response. As the Zelkarian ships fled, Jake noticed that Zeal was approaching them. The Korthic administrator, who had always been cold and dismissive, now looked at the three humans with something that might have been concern. "Are you injured?" Zeal asked, his voice actually sounding worried. "No, we're fine," Jake replied, still confused. "But what just happened? Why did they leave?" Zeal was quiet for a moment, then said something that made Jake's blood run cold. "The law protects you. It protects us all." 3 days had passed since the incident at Kepler Station, and Jake Morrison couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. He sat in the pilot's chair of the Nighthawk as they traveled through hyperspace toward New Geneva, a human diplomatic outpost. Lisa was running system checks, and Tom was in the engine room, but the ship felt unusually quiet. "Captain," Lisa said, breaking the silence, "I've been monitoring the news feeds. There's no mention of what happened at Kepler Station anywhere." Jake frowned. "That's strange. A Zelkarian raid should have been big news, especially with all those alien ships responding." "It's like it never happened," Tom said, walking onto the bridge. "I checked the shipping logs, too. No delays reported, no security incidents, nothing." Jake had been thinking about Zeal's words over and over. The law protects you. It protects us all. What law? And why had dozens of alien ships rushed to help 3 random humans? We need answers, Jake decided. Ambassador Carter at New Geneva has been dealing with alien relations for 20 years. If anyone knows what's going on, it's her. New Geneva was a small space station orbiting a gas giant in the Alpha Centauri system. It served as humanity's main diplomatic center for dealing with alien governments. The station was much smaller than Kepler, but it was heavily defended and always busy with official business. When they arrived, Jake was surprised at how quickly they were given permission to dock. Usually, diplomatic stations made cargo ships wait for hours or even days. But the traffic controller seemed almost eager to get them safely inside. Ambassador Helen Carter was a woman in her 50s with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had the look of someone who had spent years dealing with difficult negotiations. Her office was filled with gifts from various alien species and pictures of her meeting with important alien leaders. "Captain Morrison," she said as they entered. Her office. "I heard about the incident at Kepler Station." "So you know what happened?" Jake asked, sitting down across from her desk. Carter's expression became careful. "I know that there was a minor security situation that was quickly resolved." "Minor?" Lisa said, her voice rising. "We were about to be kidnapped by Zelkarian pirates." "But you weren't," Carter replied calmly. "The system worked exactly as it was designed to." Jake leaned forward. "What system?" "Ambassador, we need to know what's going on. Why did all those alien ships come to help us? What is this law that protects humans?" Carter was quiet for a long moment. She got up and walked to her window, looking out at the stars. "Captain, there are some things that are classified at levels far above your security clearance. I can tell you that humanity has certain agreements with the galactic community that ensure our safety and prosperity." "That's not good enough," Jake said firmly. 3 humans almost died, and then suddenly, "We're the most important people in the galaxy. We deserve to know why." Carter turned back to face them. "What I can tell you is that these agreements have been in place for almost 50 years. They were established after humanity's first contact with the galactic community. And they exist for very good reasons." Tom spoke up. "Are we some kind of protected species? Like animals in a zoo?" "It's more complicated than that," Carter said. She looked like she wanted to say more, but was holding back. Jake stood up. "Ambassador, with respect, that's not an answer. If there's something about humanity that makes aliens treat us differently, we have a right to know what it is." Before Carter could respond, there was a knock on her office door. A young man in his 20s entered. He had the nervous look of someone who worked with classified information. "Ambassador, I'm sorry to interrupt," he said. "There are some urgent communications from the Galactic Council that need your attention." "Danny Webb, isn't it?" Carter said. "Yes, I'll be right there." "Captain Morrison, I'm afraid our meeting will have to end here." As they were leaving the building, Danny Webb caught up with them in the corridor. He looked around nervously to make sure no one was watching. "Captain Morrison," he said quietly, "meet me at the Blue Moon Bar in Sector 7 tonight at 8. There are some things you need to know." That evening, Jake, Lisa, and Tom sat in a dark corner booth at the Blue Moon Bar. The place was popular with off-duty diplomatic staff and was known for being a place where people could talk freely. Danny arrived exactly at 8, carrying a small data pad. "What I'm about to show you could get me fired," Danny said, sitting down. "But after what happened to you at Kepler Station, I think you have a right to know." He activated the data pad and showed them several document fragments. Most of the text was blacked out, but Jake could see certain phrases: Pandora Incident, Species-Wide Quarantine Protocol, and Existential Threat Assessment. "I work in the archives," Danny explained. "I've been seeing these references for months, but most of the files are sealed. What I can tell you is that something happened about 50 years ago that changed how every alien species in the galaxy views humanity. Lisa studied the fragments. What's the Pandora incident? I don't know the details, Danny said. But it involved humanity's first contact with something called the Drektheri Empire. Whatever happened, it scared the entire galactic community enough to create special protection laws for humans. Tom frowned. Protection laws? Or containment? Laws? Danny's expression grew serious. That's the question, isn't it? I've found references to something called the Terran Protection Accord. Every major alien government signed it. But some of the language suggests it's less about protecting humans and more about protecting everyone else. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Protecting everyone else from what? From us, Danny said quietly. There are psychological evaluations of human behavior in these files. References to something called irrational escalation and existential spite. Whatever these terms mean, they scare alien psychologists enough to recommend extreme caution in all dealings with humans. Danny handed them a copy of the data fragments. There's someone you should talk to, Dr. Amanda Price at the Galactic University on Centauri Prime. She's been researching human evolutionary biology, and I think she's found something important. As they walked back to their ship, Jake noticed something that had never occurred to him before. Every alien they passed on the station gave them extra space. Vendors offered them better prices without being asked. Security guards nodded respectfully, instead of just checking their identification. Have you ever noticed, Lisa said quietly, that aliens always seem a little nervous around humans? I thought they just didn't like us, Tom replied. But this feels different. It's not dislike. It's almost like fear, Jake finished. It's like they're afraid of us. Back on the Nighthawk, Jake sat in his quarters reading through Danny's document fragments again and again. The more he read, the more questions he had. What was humanity capable of that made an entire galaxy create special laws to handle them carefully? His computer chimed with an incoming message. It was from Dr. Amanda Price at Centauri Prime. Mr. Webb told me you might contact me. I've been studying human neurological evolution for 2 years. What I've found suggests that humanity may be unique in the galaxy in ways that are both fascinating and terrifying. If you want answers about why aliens treat humans the way they do, come to Centauri Prime, but be prepared for truths that might change how you see our species forever. Jake stared at the message for a long time. Part of him wanted to ignore it, to go back to running cargo and pretending that humans were just another species in the galaxy. But he knew that was impossible now. Whatever made humans different, whatever made them feared or protected or both, he needed to know. He sent a reply to Dr. Price. We'll be there in 3 days. Outside his window, the stars looked the same as they always had. But Jake now wondered if they were really as safe out there as he had always believed, or if safety for humans came with a price that no one had ever told them about. Centauri Prime was the crown jewel of human space exploration. The planet orbited Alpha Centauri and housed the most prestigious university in human territory. The Galactic University was a massive complex where humans and aliens studied together, sharing knowledge from across the galaxy. Dr. Amanda Price met them at the university's main entrance. She was a woman in her 30s, with curly brown hair and intense green eyes. She looked like someone who had spent too many nights reading research papers and not enough time sleeping. Captain Morrison, she said, shaking his hand. Thank you for coming. What I have to show you is going to be difficult to believe. She led them through the university's halls, past lecture rooms where human and alien students sat together learning about everything from quantum physics to alien philosophy. Jake noticed that even here, in this center of learning and cooperation, the alien students gave humans extra space and seemed more polite than necessary. Doctor Price's laboratory was filled with brain scan equipment and computers, displaying complex neural patterns. On one wall, she had charts comparing the brain structures of dozens of different species. "I've been studying human brain evolution for 2 years," Dr. Price began. "What I found led me to research the historical records of first contact. And what I discovered there, double quotes." She paused, looking troubled. "Well, let me show you." She activated a holographic display that showed a timeline starting 50 years ago. This is when humanity first made contact with the galactic community. The official story is that we were welcomed as a new member species and gradually integrated into galactic society. But that's not what really happened. The display changed to show a map of the galaxy with various alien territories marked in different colors. 50 years ago, this entire region was controlled by something called the hegemony. It was an alliance of the most powerful alien species in the galaxy. They had a simple policy for new species: conquer, enslave, or eliminate. Lisa frowned. "But that's not what happened to us." "No," Dr. Price said grimly. "And that's because of what became known as the Pandora incident." She activated another display showing Earth as it was 50 years ago. The hegemony assigned the conquest of Earth to the Drake Theory Empire. The Drake Theory were the galaxy's most successful military force. They had conquered over 40 worlds without ever losing a single campaign. Tom leaned forward. "So what went wrong?" Dr. Price pulled up another file. "I was able to access some classified records through a journalist named Kevin Stone. He's been investigating this for years. According to these records, the Drake Theory sent a force of 200,000 soldiers to Earth, led by a general named Creever. They expected easy victory against what their intelligence told them was a divided, primitive species. The holographic display showed images of the invasion. Jake could see Drake Theory warships descending on Earth's major cities. The aliens were tall and reptilian, with advanced armor and weapons that looked far superior to anything humans had at the time. "The initial invasion went as planned," Dr. Price continued. "Human military forces were overwhelmed. The Drake Theory captured major population centers across North America, Europe, and Asia. But then something happened that they hadn't expected." "What?" Jake asked, though he had a feeling he didn't want to know the answer. "Humans fought back in ways that the Drake Theory couldn't understand. Most species, when faced with overwhelming force, either surrender or flee. Humans did something else entirely." The display showed grainy footage of human resistance fighters. Jake watched as human soldiers charged Drake Theory positions that were clearly hopeless to attack. He saw civilians rigging explosives in their own homes rather than let the aliens use them. "The Drake Theory were used to fighting rational opponents," Dr. Price explained. "Species that fought to win or fought to survive. But humans fought like they preferred death to defeat. Captured human soldiers would find ways to kill their guards, even when it meant their own death. Civilian populations would destroy their own cities, rather than let the aliens take them intact." Lisa shook her head. "That's horrible, but it's not unique. Lots of species fight desperately when they're invaded." "No," Dr. Price said quietly. "This was different. Let me show you the real turning point." The display changed to show a meeting of human leaders in what looked like an underground bunker. Jake could see military officers and scientists working frantically over plans and calculations. This is Colonel Sam Rivers and Major Beth Collins, who were leading the human resistance. By this point, it was clear that Earth was going to fall. The Drake Theory had too many ships, too many soldiers, and too much advanced technology. Any rational species would have begun negotiating surrender terms. But humans didn't, Jake said. No. Instead, they developed something called the Pandora Protocol. Dr. Price's voice became very serious. Dr. Maya Chun, a physicist working with the Resistance, had been developing enhanced nuclear weapons. But instead of using them against the Drektheri forces, the human leadership made a different choice. The display showed technical diagrams of nuclear devices connected to some kind of network. Jake didn't understand all the details, but he could tell it was designed for massive destruction. They were going to destroy Earth, Tom said, his voice barely a whisper. Not just destroy it, Dr. Price corrected. They were going to crack the planet's crust and turn the entire solar system into a radioactive debris field. Any Drektheri ship trying to leave would be destroyed by the expanding cloud of radioactive material. Jake felt sick. They were going to commit suicide and take their enemies with them. And that's when the Drektheri realized they weren't fighting a normal species, Dr. Price said. General Creever reported back to the hegemony that humans were willing to destroy themselves and everything around them rather than accept defeat. This concept was completely alien to them. She pulled up files showing brain scans and psychological evaluations. Most galactic species evolved as herd animals. Their survival instincts are based on protecting the group and reserving life. The idea of choosing mutual destruction over defeat was something they couldn't comprehend. What happened next? Lisa asked. Colonel Rivers delivered an ultimatum to the Drekthari. Leave Earth immediately, or everyone dies together. The Pandora Protocol was already armed and ready. One signal from Rivers, and the entire solar system would become uninhabitable for thousands of years. Dr. Price showed them a recording of the actual transmission. Jake watched as a grim-faced human colonel spoke calmly to an alien general who looked increasingly terrified. "We don't want to die," Rivers said in the recording. "But we'd rather die than live as your slaves. And if we're going to die, we're taking you with us. Every ship, every soldier, everyone in this system. Leave now, or we all end this together." The display showed General Creever's response to his superiors. Even through the alien language, Jake could hear the panic in his voice. The hegemony called an emergency session, Dr. Price continued. They brought in xenobiologists and psychologists from across the galaxy to study the human psychological profile. What they found terrified them. She showed them the alien reports, translated into human language. Jake read phrases like unprecedented existential spite, complete absence of survival-based reasoning, and species-wide capacity for mutually assured destruction. The aliens realized that humans were unique in the galaxy, Dr. Price said, not because we were stronger or smarter or more advanced, but because we were the only species capable of choosing death over defeat. And worse, our technology would eventually give us the ability to make good on galaxy-wide threats. Tom was staring at the display in horror. So they created the protection laws to keep us from feeling threatened. Exactly. The Terran Protection Accord wasn't created to protect humans. It was created to protect everyone else from what humans might do if they felt they had no other choice. Jake understood now why Zeal had looked so concerned after the incident. At Kepler Station, why alien ships had rushed to help 3 random humans. Why every alien species treated humans with careful respect. "We're not protected because they like us," he said slowly. "We're protected because they're afraid of us." Dr. Price nodded grimly. And the terrifying part is that it worked. 50 years of careful treatment has made humans prosperous and peaceful. But according to my research, we haven't lost the psychological traits that made the aliens fear us in the first place. We've just never been pushed to the point where we felt we needed to use them. She pulled up one final display, showing current human colonies scattered across the galaxy. But now humans are spreading throughout galactic space, and some of our colonies are beyond the reach of the Protection Accord. What does that mean? Lisa asked. It means, Dr. Price said quietly, that sooner or later, Some group of humans is going to face an existential threat. And when that happens, the galaxy is going to remember why they were afraid of us in the first place. Dr. Price led them to a secure viewing room, where she had prepared more classified footage. What I'm about to show you comes from Drake Theory military archives that were leaked by a whistleblower, she said, her voice tense. This is the actual moment when General Creever realized what he was dealing with. The holographic display showed the interior of a Drake Theory command ship orbiting Earth. General Creever was a massive reptilian creature with dark scales and cold yellow eyes. He stood over a tactical display showing his forces' positions across Earth's surface. The invasion had been going well for 3 weeks, Dr. Price narrated. Human military resistance was collapsing. Major cities were under Drake Theory control. But then the reports started coming in. The footage showed Creever receiving communications from his field commanders. Even without understanding the alien language, Jake could see that something was wrong. The general's confident posture changed to confusion and concern, then something that looked like fear. What were they reporting? Tom asked. Dr. Price pulled up translated transcripts. Human soldiers weren't just fighting and dying. They were fighting in ways that made no tactical sense. A human unit surrounded a Drake Theory supply depot and detonated, explosives destroying both the depot and themselves. Another group of captured humans somehow got control of a Drake Theory shuttle and crashed it into their own prison camp, killing everyone inside. Lisa shook her head. That's suicide. That's exactly what confused the Drake Theory, Dr. Price replied. Their species evolved from pack hunters. Every military strategy they knew was based on survival and victory. The concept of deliberately choosing death over capture was completely alien to them. The display showed more footage from the Drake Theory archives. Jake watched as alien soldiers reported to their commanders, their voices becoming increasingly agitated. But the real shock came when they tried to use human prisoners as leverage, Dr. Price continued. The Drake Theory captured the families of resistance leaders and threatened to execute them unless the humans surrendered. That's a standard tactic, Jake said. It works on most species, not on humans, Dr. Price said grimly. Colonel Rivers' response was broadcast across all Drake Theory frequencies. Do you want to see it? Jake nodded, though he was beginning to dread what he might learn about his own species. The display showed a human communication center where Colonel Rivers stood before a camera. He was a man in his 50s with gray hair and tired eyes. Behind him, Jake could see other human officers working frantically at computer terminals. General Creever, Rivers said in the recording, his voice calm and steady. You have our people. You threaten to kill them if we don't surrender. Let me explain something about humans that you don't understand. We don't negotiate with people who threaten our families. Rivers paused, looking directly into the camera. Every human you have captured knew the risks when they chose to fight. Every family member you're threatening understands that their sacrifice might be necessary. We mourn them, but we will not surrender to save them. Because we know that surrender means slavery for all of us, and we believe that freedom is worth any price. Jake felt a chill as he watched the recording. There was something in Rivers' voice that was both inspiring and terrifying. Execute them. If you want, Rivers continued. It will only make us fight harder. Because you've just proven that you are exactly the kind of enemy that humanity cannot coexist with. The display switched back to the Drake Theory command ship, where General Creever was staring at the communication screen in what could only be described as shock. The Drake Theory couldn't understand it, Dr. Price explained. In their culture, threats against families always worked. No species was willing to let their loved ones die for abstract concepts like freedom. But humans were different. She pulled up more footage, showing Drake Ferry forces across Earth receiving increasingly desperate orders from their commanders. Creever tried everything: economic pressure, psychological warfare, even offering favorable surrender terms. Nothing worked. Humans kept fighting with the same desperate intensity, no matter what the cost. Tom was studying the tactical displays. "How long did this go on?" "6 months," Dr. Price replied. "And that's when Dr. Maya Chun completed the Pandora Protocol." The display showed a hidden facility beneath the ruins of what had once been a major city. Inside, human scientists and engineers worked on massive mechanical devices connected by cables and computer networks. Dr. Chun was a brilliant physicist who had been working on enhanced fusion weapons, Dr. Price narrated. But when it became clear that Earth was going to fall, she proposed something unprecedented. Jake watched as the display showed technical diagrams of nuclear devices positioned around Earth's tectonic plates. She was going to crack the planet. "Not just crack it," Dr. Price corrected. The Pandora Protocol was designed to turn Earth into an expanding field of radioactive debris. The explosion would send material throughout the solar system at high velocity. Any ship trying to leave would be destroyed. The footage showed Dr. Chun explaining the plan to Colonel Rivers and Major Collins. She was a small woman with intense eyes and hands that moved constantly as she spoke. "The beauty of it," Chun said in the recording, "is that it's completely indiscriminate. We die, they die, everyone dies. No one wins, no one loses, everyone just ends." Major Collins looked troubled. "Maya, you're talking about destroying our entire planet." "I'm talking about making sure that if humanity dies, we don't die alone," Chun replied calmly. "And I'm talking about making sure that every species in the galaxy knows that this is what happens when you try to destroy us." Jake felt sick watching the recording. These were his ancestors, planning the annihilation of everything they had ever known. "The most frightening part," Dr. Price said, "is how calm they all were about it. There was no panic, no last-minute attempts to find another way. They had made their choice and were prepared to follow through." The display showed the final preparation phase. Human engineers worked methodically to install the devices while Drake Ferry forces closed in on their position. Colonel Rivers stood in the command center with his hand on a simple red button. "This is the moment," Dr. Price said, when General Creevar finally understood what he was dealing with. The footage switched back to the Drake Ferry command ship. Creevar was receiving reports from his intelligence officers who had been monitoring human communications. "The humans have armed some kind of planet-killing device," one of the officers reported. "Our analysts believe they are actually prepared to use it." "Impossible," Creever replied. "No species would commit suicide rather than accept honorable defeat." "Sir," another officer said, his voice shaking, "we've been studying human psychology for 6 months. Their behavior patterns suggest they are not only capable of this action, but consider it preferable to surrender." Jake watched as the reality sank in for General Creever. The alien commander's expression changed from disbelief to horror. "They cannot be serious," Creever said, but his voice lacked conviction. The officer activated a recording of Colonel Rivers' final transmission to the Drake Ferry fleet. "General Creever, you have 1 hour to begin evacuating your forces from Earth. If any Drake Ferry military unit remains in this solar system after that time, I will activate the Pandora Protocol. We will all die together, and your empire will learn that humanity cannot be conquered." "And he meant it," Dr. Price said quietly. Every analysis the Drake Ferry conducted confirmed that Rivers was prepared to follow through. More than that, they realized that this wasn't the decision of one desperate leader. This was a choice that represented something fundamental about human psychology. The display showed the Drake Ferry evacuation. Thousands of alien ships retreating from Earth, orbit while their commanders frantically communicated with the hegemony leadership. What scared the aliens most wasn't just that humans were willing to die, Dr. Price continued. It was that they were willing to die out of spite. The Pandora Protocol wasn't designed to achieve victory. It was designed to ensure that everyone lost. Jake was beginning to understand. So the hegemony decided that humans were too dangerous to fight. Exactly. Within days of the evacuation, every major alien power received copies of the human psychological profiles. The conclusion was unanimous. Humanity was the only known species capable of what they termed existential spite, and as human technology advanced, this made them a potential threat to the entire galaxy. The display showed the first meetings of what would become the Terran Protection Accord. Alien representatives from dozens of species gathered to discuss what Jake now realized was a containment strategy disguised as protection. They couldn't destroy humanity without risking the kind of response that Earth had threatened, Dr. Price explained. And they couldn't ignore humanity because human technology was advancing rapidly. So they chose a third option. Keep us happy, Tom said, understanding. Keep us safe, keep us prosperous, and above all, never let us feel existentially threatened, Dr. Price confirmed. Because they knew that if humans ever felt like they had no other choice, we might just decide to take everyone with us. Jake Morrison sat in stunned silence as Dr. Price's presentation ended. The laboratory felt cold and quiet after the shocking revelations about humanity's true place in the galaxy. Lisa was staring at her hands, and Tom looked like he might be sick. So everything we thought we knew about human-alien relations is a lie, Jake said finally. Not a lie, Dr. Price corrected. More like a very successful management strategy. For 50 years, the galactic community has carefully arranged things so that humans never feel threatened, enough to resort to the kind of desperate measures our ancestors were prepared to take. She activated a new display showing current trade, routes, diplomatic agreements, and territorial boundaries. Look at this data carefully. Human colonies always get the best trade deals. Disputes involving humans are resolved quickly and usually in our favor. Human space is given wide buffer zones, and alien military exercises never happen near human worlds. Jake studied the display and began to see the pattern. We're being managed. Carefully and successfully managed, Dr. Price agreed. The aliens have created a system where humans are prosperous, safe, and most importantly, never desperate. Tom frowned. But what about human colonies on the frontier? Some of those are hundreds of light years from Earth, beyond any protection. Dr. Price's expression grew troubled. That's exactly what worries me. My research suggests that the psychological traits that made our ancestors willing to activate the Pandora Protocol haven't disappeared. They've just been dormant because we've never been pushed to our limits. Before anyone could respond, an urgent alert chimed through the laboratory's communication system. Dr. Price checked her computer, and her face went pale. What is it? Lisa asked. There's been an attack on Haven Colony, Dr. Price said, reading from her screen. It's one of our most remote settlements in the Outer Rim territories. Jake felt his heart skip. What kind of attack? Dr. Price was pulling up news feeds and official reports. Raider ships from the savage reaches. The colonies out there are outside the boundaries of the Terran Protection Accord. The galactic powers have no authority in that region. The display showed images from Haven Colony, a small farming settlement on a distant world, home to about 5,000 humans. Smoke rose from damaged buildings, and people were evacuating to emergency shelters. The raiders have made demands, Dr. Price continued, reading from the official reports. They want the colonists to surrender and accept slavery, or they'll destroy the settlement entirely. Tom was studying the tactical situation. What about the Colonial Defense Force? Can't they send help? Haven is too far away, Dr. Price replied. It would take weeks for any military ships to reach them. And the raiders know that. Jake watched the news feeds, seeing the faces of frightened colonists who had traveled across the galaxy to build new lives, only to face the same kind of threat that Earth had faced 50 years ago. What are the colonists doing? Dr. Price's answer made his blood run cold. According to this report, the colony's leadership is implementing something called Emergency Protocol 7. She pulled up the colony's official communications. On the screen, Jake could see Mayor Frank Davis, a man in his 60s with weather-worn hands and determined eyes. Behind him stood Security Chief Rachel Stone and several other colonists. Citizens of Haven Colony, Davis said in the recording, we face a choice that our ancestors faced 50 years ago. We can surrender our freedom and become slaves, or we can ensure that freedom dies with us rather than submit to tyranny. Jake felt a familiar chill as he recognized the same calm determination that Colonel Rivers had shown decades earlier. We have mining charges placed throughout the colony's fusion reactor facility, Davis continued. If the raiders attempt to land and capture us, we will detonate these charges. The explosion will destroy everything within 50 kilometers, including their ships if they're foolish enough to be on the ground. Lisa gasped. They're going to destroy themselves rather than be captured. Just like Earth 50 years ago, Dr. Price said quietly. And just like Earth, they're broadcasting their intentions to make sure everyone knows what they're prepared to do. The display showed the raiders' response. The alien vessels, which had been moving toward the planet's surface, suddenly stopped and began retreating to a safer distance. The raiders are Kithans, Dr. Price explained, checking the species identification. They're not part of the galactic community, but they know the stories about humans. They're probably trying to decide if the colonists are bluffing. Tom was watching the tactical display. Are they bluffing? Dr. Price showed them the colony's internal communications. Jake could see Security Chief Stone directing teams of colonists as they worked to prepare the explosive charges. Their faces showed the same mixture of fear and determination that Jake had seen in the historical footage of Earth's resistance. No, Jake said, realizing the truth. They're not bluffing. They're actually prepared to do it. And that's what makes humans unique in the galaxy, Dr. Price said. 50 years of prosperity and safety haven't changed what we're capable of when we feel we have no other choice. The news feeds were already picking up the story. Jake watched as reports spread across human space and into alien territories. Emergency sessions were being called on multiple worlds, and diplomatic channels were buzzing with activity. Look at this, Dr. Price said, monitoring the communications. The Altarian government just issued a statement condemning the raiders and pledging support for Haven Colony. The Bexian Trade Federation is offering to send medical supplies. Even the Korthic Assembly is calling for immediate intervention. Jake understood. They're scared, not of the raiders, but of what the humans might do. Because they know that if Haven Colony destroys itself rather than surrender, it will send a message to every human settlement in the galaxy, Dr. Price explained. It will remind everyone that humans are still capable of choosing death over defeat. The display showed more alien reactions. Military fleets that had been conducting routine exercises were suddenly changing course toward the outer rim. Diplomatic envoys were traveling to human worlds with offers of assistance and protection. The galactic community is mobilizing, Lisa observed. Not to save Haven Colony, Dr. Price corrected. To prevent other human colonies from deciding they need to take similar measures. The aliens are terrified that this could spread. Jake was watching the real-time updates from Haven Colony when something changed. New ships appeared on the edge of the system, but these weren't raiders. They were sleek vessels with the markings of multiple alien governments. A joint fleet Tom said, reading the identification codes. Altarian, Bexian, Horthic, even some. Drake 3 ships. They're not there to fight the raiders, Dr. Price realized. They're there to make sure the raiders leave without forcing the humans to follow through on their threat. The communications channels lit up with frantic negotiations. The alien fleet commanders were in direct contact with the raider ships, offering them alternative targets, trade goods, even safe passage to other systems. Anything to get them to leave Haven Colony alone. Within hours, the raiders were gone. The alien fleet remained in the system, officially to provide security, but Jake knew the real reason. They were there to demonstrate to the colonists that they were safe, that they were protected, that they never needed to feel desperate enough to activate their destructive protocol. It worked, Lisa said, watching the news feeds show relieved colonists celebrating their survival. This time, Dr. Price said grimly. But what happens next time? And the time after that? The galaxy can't respond to every threat against every human colony. Eventually, some group of humans is going to find themselves in a situation where they feel they have no choice. Jake was thinking about his own experiences over the past week. The quick response at Kepler Station, the careful treatment they received everywhere they went, the deferential behavior of alien species that he had always attributed to simple politeness. We're not really free, are we? He said finally. We're protected, but it's protection that comes with invisible chains. That's the paradox, Dr. Price agreed. Humans are untouchable because we've proven we're willing to touch everything, including ourselves, if we feel threatened. But that same willingness makes the galaxy determined to never let us feel threatened. Tom was studying the tactical displays from Haven Colony. The scary part is how quickly the colonists were ready to do it. They didn't hesitate, didn't try to negotiate. They just went straight to the nuclear option. Because that's what humans do, Dr. Price said. It's not that we want to destroy everything. It's that we'd rather destroy everything than live without freedom. And after 50 years of careful management, the galaxy has never tested whether that's still true. Jake looked at his crew and realized that everything had changed. They weren't just cargo runners anymore. They were representatives of a species that the entire galaxy feared enough to handle with extreme care. So what do we do with this knowledge? He asked. Dr. Price was quiet for a moment. We remember that our freedom comes with a price. Not just for us, but for everyone. The galaxy treats us carefully because they know what we're capable of. But that means we have a responsibility to be worthy of that fear. Outside the laboratory windows, Jake could see alien students.